If someone would ask you to list the top 50 things in Ohio State football history, it would probably start a heck of a debate. To see what our top 40 looked like, take a look at this. It's quite a list, but we've still got 10 more to go. So let's get started with a player who never met a challenge he didn't like or a tackle he couldn't make.
After being featured on the cover of a Wheaties box, Chris Spielman came to Columbus with as much hype and hoopla as any recruit in years. 546 tackles, 3 All-Big Tens, 2 All-Americans, and 1 Lombardi Award later, Chris left Columbus with a reputation as one of Ohio State's most driven players ever.
And he was just relentless. He was almost obsessed.
I've never seen a guy with more fire in his eyes, with more determination, more consistency than Chris Spielman.
He's a football player, plain and simple. Chris wants to be in the game.
He loved to hit, run, and play the game of football.
He wasn't the best athlete in the world, but Chris Spielman would outwork anyone.
Never was Chris's desire and fierce competitiveness more on display than in the Buckeyes' biggest games.
One would be the Michigan game of '86. He played unbelievable. He had so many hits, it wasn't even funny.
Chris had 29 tackles that day. That's still an Ohio State single-game record that may never be broken.
In the Buckeyes' upset of then #1 Iowa the previous year, Spielman devastated the Hawkeyes with 19 tackles and 2 interceptions.
You know, he rose to the challenge, and that passion and tenacity led to making great play after great play, and that's what Chris is all about.
After graduating, Spielman took his old-school intensity to the NFL, and he quickly established himself as one of the league's most feared defenders. But for citizens of the Buckeye Nation, Chris Spielman will always be remembered best for his unforgettable days wearing the scarlet and gray.
He's one of a kind. His passion for Ohio State is great. He is really a true Buckeye.
I'm an Ohio kid, and I wanted to play on a great football team, and that was the Buckeyes. It's an honor to be an Ohio State Buckeye.
It was the game Buckeye fans had been waiting for over 20 years. And when the 1997 Rose Bowl was finally over, everyone agreed it was well worth the wait.
Ohio State had not been to the Rose Bowl in 12 years and had not won a Rose Bowl in 23 years.
We've had great seasons in the years prior, but we can never end it with the ultimate winning the Rose Bowl.
When Arizona State quarterback Jake Plummer snaked his way for the go-ahead score, it looked like another Buckeye season would end in bowl game heartbreak.
The snake does it again.
But with just 1:33 remaining, Germaine and the Buckeye offense were just getting started.
Just stepping in that huddle, I didn't have to say anything. I mean, we knew what we had to do. Just that look in my eye and to look in everybody else's eye, and that's all it took.
He just had nerves of steel and was just going through this like it was a 2-minute drill in a practice.
Germaine hit 3 very, very key third down passes to Demetrius Stanley, and then Ohio State, with the aid of a couple penalties, ends up with the ball at the Arizona State 5-yard line, 24 seconds to go.
I saw the cornerback who was guarding David Boston following my eyes in, kind of left his responsibility, and that just left David wide open.
And for us to come down and score, Germaine to David Boston, it was the greatest feeling in the world.
I just remember, honestly, tears coming to my eyes, and just, it was one of those things where, people were so happy. It was unbelievable.
Ohio State's win over Arizona State in the Rose Bowl at the end of the 1996 season is definitely one of the top 10 wins in all of Ohio State football.
To see this football team bounce back from adversity, that's what college football is all about.
He was the player that changed it all and the man that took Ohio State football from an athletic afterthought to the hottest ticket in town.
Before Harley's arrival, oftentimes some high schools might draw bigger crowds for their games than Ohio State drew for its games.
But with Harley in the backfield, tiny Ohio Field suddenly became the place to be.
By the time Harley was finished in his senior year of 1919, old Ohio Field, with its 20,000 seating capacity, was too small to accommodate all the fans that wanted to see the Buckeyes play.
Having just joined the Big Ten in 1913, Ohio State was striving to compete with the conference's more established schools. But when Chick took the field in 1916, the Buckeyes suddenly became the class of the league.
Halfback Chick Harley led Ohio State to its first Big Ten titles in 1916 and 17. He was the Buckeyes' first three-time All-American, and he's the man, probably more than anybody else, that really put Ohio State football on the map.
In 1919, Harley ignited college football's fiercest rivalry when he led the Buckeyes to their first victory over Michigan after 18 years of frustrating futility. With Ohio Field now overflowing, the university had a problem it never envisioned just 4 years before. Their answer became the centerpiece of Ohio State football and one of college football's most enduring landmarks.
The enthusiasm generated during the Harley years that led to the drive to raise money to build Ohio Stadium, which was dedicated in 1922. And it has been very appropriately called the house that Harley built.
Pride, honor, blood and guts, and usually the Big Ten title. These are the stakes every third Saturday of November, when two of college football's towering giants meet for their season-ending scuffle.
In my opinion, the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry is without question the greatest tradition in all of college football. I think you can make a strong case that this might be the greatest tradition in all of American athletics.
That game does go to another level. College football is a fast game, but Ohio State-Michigan is on a complete different level.
The week of practice is vicious. I mean, everybody's on their toes.
Trying to get everything under control, and it's really hard. You don't sleep all week.
The first game between Ohio State and Michigan was played back in 1897, and Michigan really dominated the early years. In fact, Ohio State won none of the first 15 games.
But when the Buckeyes finally claimed victory in 1919, the rivalry was on. In 1935, the battle was moved to the last game of the season, and a Midwest border skirmish became a full-blown civil war.
I was taught to hate Michigan, and funnily enough, I still do.
They hate Michigan, but they respect the fact that Michigan is special. And we feel the same way about Ohio State.
Being a New Yorker, not from Ohio, I didn't understand that people would tear your head off if you weren't serious about this game.
And believe it or not, I think the student body, the fans are more hyped than the players are.
After more than 100 years of bitter hand-to-hand combat, an end to the fighting is nowhere in sight, a fact that suits everyone just fine. The experts said the Buckeyes didn't stand a chance. But when the 2003 Fiesta Bowl was over, an instant classic was born, and the national title was in Ohio State's hands.
There's a lot of guys from ESPN or wherever that said, Ohio State doesn't deserve to be in this game, but we were there, so we wanted to prove everybody wrong.
You could put an NFL team out there. They were ready to just go and show that they weren't as bad as everybody was saying.
Of course, the experts had their reasons for picking Miami. The Hurricanes were the defending national champs, and they entered the game with a 34-game win streak. The Buckeyes, on the other hand, were seen as a scrappy upstarts who'd escaped defeat all season long. Taken together, it added up to a 13-point spread in favor of the Canes, but the Buckeyes were having none of that.
Our coaches wasn't coaching us to come back from a 13-point deficit. Our coaches were coaching us to go out there and play, every play out.
We went out there and just enjoyed it and have fun, and the way it played out was definitely something special.
In my opinion, the greatest championship game that I've ever witnessed at any level.
It was one of those games that you can't take your eyes off the field because you're going to miss something.
It was a game of head-turning plays, bone-crunching hits, and controversial calls. And after 4 ties, 3 lead changes, 2 overtimes, and countless heart attacks, it all came down to one final play.
Center Romberg, Sands motioning. Back is Dorsey to throw. Yeah! He throws it in the end zone. It's incomplete. The Buckeyes win the national championship in 2 overtimes.
That's a dream. That's beyond the goal to win a national championship. That's a dream.
Every Buckeye fan was happy, and I think it restored, that sense of pride back in Columbus and back in Ohio and for Ohio State Buckeye fans.
Slight in size, but blessed with heart, Archie Griffin became a Buckeye in spite of his detractors.
A lot of people around Columbus told me that I shouldn't go to Ohio State. They told me that I was too small and I'd be better off going to a smaller school.
Fortunately for fans, Griffin signed with his hometown team, and the age of Archie was officially begun.
Was there ever a greater player at Ohio State than Archie Griffin? Absolutely not.
There's no one that could do what Archie Griffin did. He won the Heisman twice, and that says it all.
Quite honestly, I think he should have won it 3 times.
Not maybe the greatest athlete in the world or the fastest guy or the biggest guy, but when you put him in there on Saturday, then you had your hands full.
Archie's 4 years were a magical time of rushing records and postseason honors, Michigan wins and Rose Bowls galore. But while many think of Heisman's when they hear Griffin's name, people in Ohio know that Archie's about more than just football.
Fans have tremendous respect for him, not only so much as a former football player, but maybe even more importantly, today as an individual.
He's probably the most decorated athlete to come out of Ohio State. And still, he will sign every autograph, and he'll do what he can to help in any way.
He personifies what we want to see at Ohio State in terms of image, a standard of excellence, a standard of generosity, a selflessness, and fame, all wrapped into one human being in a very, very special way.
Archie has not only become the goodwill ambassador for Ohio State football, Archie has become the goodwill ambassador for Ohio State University.
He's just one of those guys that come along once in a lifetime. And for people that don't know Archie Griffin, you're missing out because he's a great, great guy and a great human being.
It was a season for the ages and a shock to the heart. And when Buckeye fans speak of 2002, they'll recall a season of glory that stands without peer.
Ohio State's had many great seasons, but I think if you had to pick one season out of all of those great seasons, I would pick the 2002 season, not only because they were national champions and not only because they're the only team ever to win 14 games in one season, but because of how they did it.
Each week, it was like they found a new way to win games.
At Cincinnati, a last-minute end-zone interception preserved a 4-point win. Against Penn State, an interception return produced the game's only touchdown and a 6-point win over the Lions. 2 weeks later, with time running out, a 4th down bomb stunned Purdue and made believers of the men on the field.
As Crenshaw hit him on the fly.
After the Purdue game, I really thought that we were going to do it all. We were destined to do it.
We always believed that we could get it done. There was never a doubt in our minds that we were going to win.
That confidence only increased the following week when the Buckeyes held off Illinois in Ohio State's first overtime game. And just when it seemed like it couldn't get any more intense, it did.
And what a Michigan game. I mean, that game is right down to the last second, and Ohio State is able to emerge with a 14-9 victory.
Head into the desert.
And then going up against a team that had won 34 in a row, taking that game to a double overtime and never saying die.
It was just a great team. There were big-time players, but there wasn't that one player that was the team.
I'll never forget any of those guys the rest of my life. Just to bring it back here to Columbus, it wasn't just a championship for us as players, for everybody.
All you have to do is say the name Woody, and Buckeye fans know exactly who you're talking about. And while he stalked the Ohio State sidelines for 28 years, he left a legacy that stretches far beyond football.
He was more than a football coach. He was an educator. He was a mentor. He was a friend.
He loved history. He wrote books. There wasn't too much that he couldn't do.
Woody was a well-rounded, smart individual.
On the field, Hayes led the Buckeyes to 3 national championships and 13 Big Ten titles, all achieved with a brute force style that left opponents dazed and confused.
He taught the basic fundamentals of blocking, tackling, no mistakes, no missed assignments. That's why he was so hard to beat.
He wasn't the smartest coach. He'd be the first one to admit that. He won football games.
The most competitive person that I've been associated with, once you crossed that line and stepped onto the field, the level of intensity was at its maximum.
That intensity led to numerous altercations and eventually cost Hayes his career. But while the nation sometimes saw Woody at his worst, the people closest to him knew there was more to the man than met the eye.
If you see stories in the media now, it's about, how Woody lost it and hit the guy on the sideline, but they never say anything about the tons of good stuff that he did.
The stories about his hospital visits and the free speeches that he made across the country were not ones that made the headlines.
He didn't want people to know that underneath that rough exterior, there was a heart as big as Ohio Stadium.
The people that Woody knew and the people knowing knew just how great a man he was.
When you have 151 All-Americans and Heisman Trophy winners and some national championships, and on top of that, you help people, that's hard to beat.
They've got as much pride in history as the Buckeyes, and without them, no game would be complete. And when the best damn band in the land delivers their trademark song, get ready for a tradition that's like no other.
And that is what it's all about. And the fans go crazy. If you don't get chills, well, you're not a Buckeye.
I've tried to tell people from other schools that you just don't understand it. It's something different. It's something really special, and it's something that's a beautiful part of Ohio State.
It's our signature for the band, for the university, for the state of Ohio, for people that love the band and know what we do.
The legendary routine was first unveiled in 1932, but its origins came from an unlikely source.
The University of Michigan band playing in Columbus actually performed a Script Ohio. And the Michigan director walked across the field to Eugene Weigel of the Ohio State Marching Band and handed him the diagrams to Script Ohio.
This rare gift of the Buckeyes' arch rival has gone on to become one of college football's most unique and beloved traditions.
Just the way the crowd reacts, and I mean, you get chills every time you see it.
There is no words. You have to go and see it. And I hope one day I get to dot the I.
The crowd just roars in anticipation. And it was at that point that kind of hit me that this is going to happen, this is going to be it. And it was incredible.
There's a spectacle that takes place inside Ohio Stadium that's larger than the football game. And for some folks, that's why they go to the game.
Our band and that feeling with 102,000 people, you just have to go do it.
It's known to millions by its shape alone, and those who've been inside know the magic it holds. And for the fans and players that call it home, Ohio Stadium is the center of the college football universe.
There's not another football stadium like it in the world.
That stadium is as good as it gets. It's just a tall, big, almost Gothic-looking structure. That's how a stadium's supposed to look.
It's not the biggest stadium in the country, but it's the best setting for a college football game of any stadium in the country.
Before it opened in 1922, skeptics said its massive interior could never be filled. But almost 100 years and countless sellouts later, the Horseshoe stands as a national landmark.
You don't build 70,000-seat stadiums in 1922, and people here had the vision to do that.
To put together an edifice where you pretty near copied the Colosseum of Rome. The vision that they had, I think, was marvelous.
That vision was honored in 2001 with a $200 million renovation that brought the Horseshoe into the modern age.
It still looks like the shoe, it feels like the shoe, it's the shoe.
We can get 100,000 people in there now, but yet it still hasn't changed what the Horseshoe looks like and what it's all about. And I think we have the finest stadium in the world.
It's so great to be able to stick your chest out and say, that's our place and that's our home, and we win there. That's how it works.
That winning tradition was built by legendary coaches, one-of-a-kind players, and college football's most devoted fans.
They have 110,000 fans screaming every play. They believe in their Buckeyes.
When you're on the sideline in that hole and they're cheering their guts out, you're in sync with one another. It's just perfect harmony.
You could feel the chemistry and the excitement and the passion. And I've not felt that in many other stadiums.
It's a great place for a college game, a great atmosphere. There's so much history involved in it. And the fans at Ohio State, there's none better.
Well, there you have it. Buckeye Classics list of the 50 greatest games, players, coaches, moments, and traditions in Ohio State football history. We hope you enjoyed it. Of course, with Ohio Stadium primed and ready for another 100 years, we can expect plenty of changes to the list and lots of excitement. For Buckeye Classics, I'm Archie Griffin. Thanks for watching.